I want you to really focus here because if everyone else gets paid and you don't have a business. You have a hobby. Welcome to the Moms Making Dough podcast. I'm your host, Kendra Hewitt, and today is our grand finale of our summer school series. Although I do have potentially 2 bonus episodes coming up in on the docket. But I wanted to welcome you back and congratulate you. If you have listened to this summer school series, you are about to start to reap the harvest of all of the seeds you have planted this summer. And we've talked all summer long about packaging, pricing, promoting, getting paid, hiring your dream team. And today we are wrapping it up with the glue that holds it all together, which is going to be our final P in our 8-week series. And that is tracking your performance, or I like to say chasing performance. Because here's the truth. This is probably one of the best business cliche sayings I've ever heard, but I know it is one of the ones that was not only the hardest for me to really start to absorb, but definitely one of the ones that has made the biggest impact across multiple businesses for me. And that is what you measure, you will master. If you don't track it, you cannot grow it. And if you don't know where you are, you'll never know how to get where you want to end up. So, I'm going to show you today how to get comfortable with your numbers, use them like a GPS so you can tell if you are growing, stagnant, or just cruising in maintenance mode. So, I wanted to kick off today's episode with a success story because it's a recent one that I've just, one of my clients shared with me last weekend. And it just made my weekend because she sent me a text about how she had her best sales week ever in her salon. She is a client that she had been in business for over a decade, actually closer to 12 years. So a dozen years in her practice, in her salon. She came to me hustling hard, constantly stressed and wondering about like her bank account. Like always, we hit it off right away. We were friends before, but we hit it off so hard because like I could totally relate to where she was at. And the money that she was taking out of her business was not reflecting the intense amount of work she was putting in still after 12 years. So, I was just so excited to celebrate with her. And I remember when we first started working together, one of the first things we started working on, which is a question that I ask every entrepreneur I work with is like, what do you pay yourself? And how do you pay yourself is my next question. And I get such a wide variety of answers. And this is why I'm so passionate about this because, again, this was once my pain. And my problem is like, hey, I'm working my ass off, but how come my bank account doesn't show it for it? So we started just by focusing on the concept of paying yourself first. And that was very small at the beginning. But what I want you to really take away from me sharing this part of her story is that I shared with her about how little deposits over time will start helping her build confidence in not only paying herself, but also just with her numbers in general. And she was she had a lot of data. She actually was pretty good at collecting data, but she just didn't know what to do with it. And she also didn't know what mattered and what didn't in terms of when it came to measuring metrics. So, the first couple months we worked together, we really focused on like, what are the metrics we need to measure? What is our baseline? And what do we need to do to grow it, to stay in maintenance mode? Or what is a sign that we are getting stagnant and we're starting to go into survival mode rather than in thrive mode? So I love to use this example because it also, like, just even when we work together now, just hearing the confidence in her tone of voice and her, confidence in the ability to lead her team, that was the kinda icing on the cake. Not only did she have her best sales week ever, she said that she had her team dinner, and her team dinner was one of the absolute best and most connected she ever felt with her team. And when she came to me, she wasn't coming to me just to get better with her numbers. That was kind of a bonus that we focused on up front. But she wanted to really start to step into a leadership role of leading her team better so she could work smarter. And also, one of the things that I think that for the first time she felt is that she started to feel like the CEO of her company and not just an unpaid intern. Like I said, so many people come to me in that situation where they have, significant revenue, six figures, usually or more, and they're still not paying themselves what they actually should be taking home from their business. So that is the power of starting to really get to know your numbers and also to measure what matters to your specific business. Because when you start measuring what matters in your business, your personal financial life is also going to change. So let's talk about the metrics that matter. And I want to give you a metaphor that I personally like, I feel like is a really good one. And it's one that I use often. And I always like to think of when I look at metrics as are you on a diet, meaning do you want to cut fat? Or are you in a what we call a build phase, right? Where you're building muscle. Um, those are two different things. Or are you in maintenance mode? Like you are just maintaining whatever results that you are. And as always, it always comes back down to intention. But I want you to think about if we think about the metaphor of losing weight versus building muscle versus maintaining your current status, they have very different intentions, different requirements, different numbers. Now, a lot of people will get really confused, and this is why I love this metaphor, is because a lot of the things that you can cut fat and lose weight, and it is very difficult to do that while building muscle. And obviously, you don't do either one if you are committing to staying in maintenance mode where you're finding a happy balance to maintain the current result you have. So the same thing goes for your business is that we're not looking at just like cutting expenses. We don't need to look at metrics of like, hey, what do we need to cut? Which is if we start there, that tends to put more people, anytime we talk about finances, we're going to cross over into the mindset behind it. When you think about cutting something from your business, that's going to put you more into scarcity mode versus we want to be much more in abundance mode, which is building. So when you build muscle, you eat very differently than when you're cutting fat. Um, a lot of people are very there's a misconception, especially if you look at the internet for your, weight loss and building muscle advice, or influencers, I find is that there's a lot of disconnect between that you can cut fat and build muscle at the same time. Reality is you really have two very different intentions. Thus, you need two different strategies to do so. So if you are building muscle, you need to eat to gain muscle. But muscle burns a lot more fat than actual a pound of fat. So even when it's resting. So if you're cutting fat, a lot of times you're when you initially lose weight, you lose water and not actually fat. So there's different strategy behind that. So why I'm saying this is that the same thing goes and applies to when you have your metrics in your business. You want to really look at metrics that matter. And I'm going to talk about the 5 ones I look at today. Now, you might have additional ones that you look at, or also some people refer to them as key performance indicators that you look at. The question is, are you tracking them? Because here is reality. I went to school to be a pilot, so I love to use this metaphor as well in this scenario. Is that 90% of the time when you are flying on the plane, you are off course. So if you don't know where you are on the map, and in this case, where you are in the sky, you are going to really struggle to follow a flight plan that is going to get you to a destination if you don't know where you're starting from. So you are constantly adjusting as you fly that plane. Now, a lot of it's technology driven, but in the old school days that when I learned to fly, it was really based on what my dashboard was telling me. So your metrics are your dashboard. Without them, you're basically flying blind and hoping that you either end up at some sort of destination or you don't crash and burn. So, not to be morbid, but that's reality is like that. I feel like that metaphor is so powerful for you to understand how important measuring metrics are because you need to know where you are leaving from. When you call ATC, air traffic control, and you're about to take off and you ask, are you cleared for takeoff? You have to say, hey, I'm on runway 16 and I'm headed to Portland, Maine. And my flight plan is established, right? And you will say, like, I'm going to fly heading, blah, 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 you know. Um, and once I leave this airport, once I leave the runway, so you need to communicate to ATC, air traffic control, what your intention is. And the same thing goes for your business is that for you to manifest growth in your business, get out of stagnant mode, get out of survival mode, get out of being stuck in scarcity, you need to start to manifest what that is, the direction and the final destination you want to be going. And so for you to do that, you have to have metrics that show up on your dashboard for you to be able to know, are you on course, are you off course, or do you actually need to reroute? And that's why I say it's like metrics are basically your GPS for your business. So let's talk about the baseline metrics you must track. This is also the 5 baseline metrics that I use when I'm working with a client. Again, based on your industry, you might have additional KPIs, but for the sake of this podcast episode, I just want you to start to learn like some of the things that you can actually focus on and some of the baseline ones you want to focus on to be able to figure out where on the map you are. So, the first one is going to be new clients in, right? So that one's pretty obvious. Who's knocking on your door? If nobody's coming in, your funnel's empty and your growth is not going to happen, right? So you're going to stall out in plane metaphor, no one wants to stall a plane, right? So first up is like really how many people this month. I always look at you can do them weekly. I do have a lot of my clients do them weekly and then tally them at the end of the month and we go over them at the end of the month because we start to look for and identify trends on what do we need to do, how many new people do we need to bring in our door for us to be able to be in maintenance mode? How many people do need to come in the door for us to get into growth mode? And how many people do we need that, or what's that number that when we go below starts to put us in survival mode? So when it comes to new clients too, which means you need to be attracting and doing some sort of marketing effort, right? So if you know that you had 0 clients come in the month, then you know that you need to start to shift some of your focus, majority of your focus in my opinion, on actually marketing and generating new clients or you won't have a business very long, right? So new clients in is the first metric that we're going to track. The second metric you're going to track is sales converted. Let me go back to new clients. And one thing I wanted to say here is that I was just recently working with someone where she had some very loose numbers of what she had, and she kind of guesstimated. And this is pretty common too, is that when you first start tracking metrics, you might not have actually real hard data to work with. You might just kind of guesstimate. But now with softwares and everything like that, is really so easy to start to see how many new people came in your door. But here's the thing, there's a real challenge when you start to guesstimate and you don't actually have the metric. So when you're first starting out, if this is something new for you, what I suggest is like you actually go through your book of business, whether it's with an app or software, or maybe you're old school and you keep it in a written book. I do have a couple people that like that way. Um, I like both. I like the combination of the app and tracking apps. And then also on top of it, I have Excel's backup. And then I also do write in a physical book, like how many new clients did I have? And with that said, that also is going to show me like what are my offers working. If I didn't have a lot of new clients this month, that means I didn't have many offers or the offer needs to be tweaked. And that also tells me too is that like, what if I have an awesome month? What did I do? Did I change my offer? Did I put it out there more consistently? What were my changes? It starts to give me some data to work with on feedback on how do I spend my marketing dollars in this first baseline metric of new clients in. And I find when you guesstimate, though, like I said, in this scenario, this person estimated that she had 9 new clients that month. But it turns out that 9 new clients for her is actually survival mode. She needs closer to 15. And if she wants to get into growth, she needs 20 new clients a month. So, and that's based on like her revenue that she wants to generate too. So I want you to really start to think and start to track this number. If this is the only one you track, this is a really important indicator of what on your dashboard of where how many offers you're making, are they working, what are you spending for marketing dollars if at all, and are they is it working, is it worth it? Because once you have this baseline number, then you can also know, like I said, when you start to dip into a contraction versus you get into growth mode. So in this woman's, like I said, instance, 9 was just her survival mode, 15 was her maintenance, 20 is her growth mode. So, really start to think about it that way. Next thing we're going to talk about is the next metric is going to be sales converted. So, once they're in their door, are they saying yes? Because interest is cute, but income is what pays your bills. So, this shows you how well you are inviting people to commit and actually what your sales process is. So, if you listen to the full summer series, I talked a lot about the sales process. I don't know what episode it is. I can link it in this though. And this is like, hey, they raised their hand, they said that they're interested, and you took them from interested to committed, or interested to income, I like to say, because it is very obvious, it is very clear that you can have new clients in and none of them can actually convert to sales, which none of us want to have happen. So this is where this metric is so important, is that like, hey, let's say we'll stick with 10 new clients a month is your balance mode. Let's say that's your maintenance mode, but your growth is 15 new people a month. Of those 15, how many of those people need to convert? Right. So, like for you to be actually not just pay your bills and be in, like I said, in maintenance mode, but into growth mode where you're starting to grow your business. So, let's say if you have 15 new clients and you need to convert 10 of them, right? This is also starts giving us some conversion percentages. So, we start to see this data of like, hey, we have really great marketing going on. We're getting people in the door, but where we're really needing some support is actually in our conversion process. So that's what that metric's going to start to tell us. Next thing we're going to cover is cash collected. So that our third metric is going to be cash collected. Did the money actually hit your account? A verbal yes without payment is just, like I said, dipping their toe in the pool, but not really jumping in. This is the oxygen of your business. If when we talked about profit and prioritizing profit, I talked about how this is the number one problem for most business owners is that cash flow is not consistent. So this is why this is my third metric is that I want to know what actually hits your account. And that's because that's going to give us a lot of that scorecard of what is the health of our business. What direction are we going? Are we going downhill? Are we maintaining our speed, and or are we speeding up and actually growing and accelerating how quickly we can get to our final destination or whatever our destination is in our business? And then the fourth one is going to be cash out. So if we know, hey, we got to know what's coming in, but we also need to be aware of what's going out. Where's it going? Is it going to your software subscriptions? Is it going to utilities? Is it going to rent? Is it going to target runs? Is it going to your team? Tiffany, the client that I told you about before that owns the salon, she really started a huge shift here because when in the past she just focused on like where she could cut, what should she trim, but it wasn't serving her because her business had to open up space for her to start to generate some profit, not only to pay herself, but also because she wanted to attract high quality team members and really take care of the ones that already were on her team. So, and this allowed her to really start to see is like, hey, where am I spending that I could get a little bit tighter on? But also, what are the necessities and what are the necessities I want to have in the future? I always talk a lot about payroll here because I like to plan for what I call plan for payroll, meaning I know I'm going to need to hire this person in a couple months, and this is what I'm going to look at. It's going to look like. This is what the investment's going to be, and this is how long it's probably going to take me to invest in that to get that return on investment. So I like to know, like, hey, if I need to add a secretary to my an admin to my cash out, what would that need to be? Because I want to start to really pay attention to not only the cash collected, metric number 3, but cash out, which is metric number 4. And once you start to trim the things that aren't serving you, you open up space for things that will. And like I said, for new hires, for expansion, for adding additional services or additional equipment that maybe you could use to increase your revenue instead of start to just maintain where you're currently at. And then the final one is going to be profit paid out. Now, this is what I call the queen bee, right? This is the queen of them all is profit paid out specifically to you. Because there is a time and place where, like you want to leave some profit in your business. We talk about this again on prioritizing your profit in that episode. But I want you to really focus here because if everyone else gets paid and you don't have a business. You have a hobby. And as hard as that is that for some people to hear, the people that I work with, that's why they're coming to me is that they don't want it to be a hobby. Or there's a lot of scenarios where I have people that are actually their hobby has turned into a business without them actually intentionally doing that, and then now they need to catch up and find not only the metrics that matter, but find their groove and set intentions for their growth because it's expanded so much. And Tiffany's whole world, like that's what I said, her salon, when she started to finally pay herself, and it wasn't much at first, even after a long time. And that's what I want for you too is like, I want you to start to make the mindset shift. And anytime we talk about money, we're going to talk about mindset because it all starts there. And anytime that we talk about paying yourself more of what you're worth, like I said, instead of being an unpaid intern in your business, which man, I've been there before. So that's why that, like I said, I'm so passionate about this is because you start building reps, it starts becoming a habit. And then before you know it, it builds confidence. It also builds trust in your capabilities. And also, it builds trust in your team. And your team ultimately, if you listen to last week's episode on hiring your dream team and creating A players, attracting A players, you will start to see that the team is the dream that will actually free you from your business or allow you to function in areas of the business where you are highest and best use instead of getting stuck as head cook and bottle washer and everything in between. So, this is the strategy. These are the 5 metrics I use that I really encourage all my mompreneurs to really track. And that's going to be again, new clients in is going to be number 1. Number 2 is going to be sales converted. Number 3 is going to be cash collected. Number 4 is going to be cash outlaid. And then the 5th one is going to be profit paid out. How much did you actually take home out of your business? Like I said, a lot of people, a lot of my clients, I have them measure this on a weekly basis. I like the more frequency versus then we have a monthly report where we fill that out. So this is the design. So it takes you from survival to maintenance to thrive. And remember, like I said, if we go back to that metaphor, is survival mode is like I like to visualize that when it comes to metrics is like that's kind of like your crash diet. Like that's like, hey, oh shit, I'm going on vacation and I need to lose 5 pounds. You start cutting everything just trying to survive. Hey, I can't have alcohol. Hey, I can't have, gluten. I can't have dairy, or I'm going to cut calories. In business, that's scrambling for sales and praying the next client pays to kind of float you. And that's a mode that none of us want to live in, nor is it sustainable. Like there is no crash diet that is sustainable. Let's face it, hard, brutal, honest truth. But then there's maintenance mode, and maintenance mode is more of your, like I said, a balanced lifestyle. This is steady, sustainable. You can breathe again. It's not flashy, it's not sexy often, but it's foundational. And it's so interesting. I'll throw one thing in here. Last week, so I grew up like riding horses, and it's my passion. I love it. It's in my blood, and I didn't ride for like 20 plus years, consistently until earlier this year. I had an opportunity to lease a horse. It's been so magical, and one of the things about it that's been really, really helpful for me is I've been taking lessons again, and most people are like, "Hey, why would you take lessons if you know how to ride?" It's like one of those things that like you can always get better and you are always learning and always evolving. And I took a clinic with a trainer last week. And my whole theme, I love to reflect on the theme of like, hey, what did I learn from that lesson? Or that clinic. And one of the huge things that like I was like, holy shit, this is such a big metaphor for my life right now, is talking about how like slow work is some this not sexy work is some of the most important foundational work that you build upon. And I think when we start to get a little bit more comfortable and we start to be good at something or we start to feel confident at something, we tend to want to speed up instead of slow down. And that slowing down and doing the things that aren't sexy. This is what I think about when I think about maintenance mode of balanced lifestyle. It's doing the stretching before you work out. It's drinking the water even though you don't want to. It's sticking to your macros. It's not eating the second helping of cheesecake, but having that one because you really enjoyed it. It's being able to get right back on track when you get off of track. And that's how I kind of look at maintenance mode, not only from a fitness perspective and a diet perspective, but also from a business perspective is like what is the work that is slow, not sexy, not flashy, but it's foundational for you. And then the next final one is going to be the thrive mode. And thrive mode is being very specific. You are building muscle, and this is how much muscle you want to build. This is where you want to build it. I want to put, 5 pounds of muscle on in my legs. I want to train for a marathon. I want to do a high rocks event. I want to do whatever it is that you set your intention for, which means you need a specific plan and usually a specific coach, which is why, like I said, when I think about working with all the mompreneurs that I work with, is like I'm a specific coach. Like I want to know what is your intention? What do you want to build? And how do you want to grow? Not, hey, let's just take more money home. That's not specific enough. So, thrive mode always requires intention and specificity. This is where you go from, if you look at maintenance mode, I like to say maintenance mode is you could be more generalized. You can follow a program, you can follow a do it yourself course. But when you want to get into thrive mode, often, just like I needed the trainer that did the clinic to kind of push me into the next level of what I needed to work on. I you I if I could ride by myself every day, but if I did that, I wouldn't get better and I wouldn't start to um have specific things I was working on. Now, after this clinic, I have some specific things that I know I need to focus on, things that will take me to the next level of where I'm at with my riding and with this horse. So, same thing with Thrive Mode is you are looking for specificity, strong intentional focus, usually coached or following a program led by someone else. You're not just maintaining, you are making a plan and following it for growth. Now, of course, there could be detours along the way. That's going to happen. Everything. I always like to say business doesn't happen just like anything in a straight line. There's curves, there's bumps, there's detours, but you're paying yourself more, you're working less, and you're creating freedom with a very strategic plan in place. And that's what these metrics help you do. They help you identify what are those things that you need to be measuring so you know, like I said at the beginning, where you are on the map. You know where you're starting from, you know where you want to ultimately end up with specificity, and then all you have to do is figure out what is the plan that's going to get me there in between. And that's when you can consider that you're in thrive mode. And that's why measuring your metrics and chasing performance, not just tracking your performance, gets really fun and helps you start to go into a mode where you look at your business every day and you are excited about not only the direction it's going, but the freedom it's creating, not only in your business, in your professional life, but also in your personal life, so that you don't start missing games for kids or not being able to sign kids up for gymnastics or dance because they can't do both, right? Like you're giving, I love to say, like, as an entrepreneur, one of the things that I really focus on is like, what am I creating for my daughter for the future? Not only in an example, but most of all, like, what am I creating? What foundation am I laying for her? Um, and what do I want to show her? And also, what legacy do I want to leave behind? Like, we could get into this in a whole other episode, because that's a whole other topic for sure. But I just want you to start to really think about, like, if you could reframe how important it is for you to have a dashboard of metrics that show you where you're at, an intention of where you want to end up, and then be able to close the gap and use that data, those metrics, to measure what matters so you get out of survive mode and into thrive mode. Thank you so much for listening to this summer school series. I hope you have enjoyed it as much as I have loved delivering it. And I will see you next week on Mom's Making Dough, where I just might have a bonus episode for you guys that I didn't plan to do, but is really feeling very strongly needs to be done. So I'll see you. And as always, thank you for listening. Please share with someone that you know could use this information. And if you feel so inclined, we grow with reviews, ratings, and subscriptions. So if you like my podcast, please, please, please feel free to write a review, rate it, and or share it with someone you love who could also benefit from this information. And we'll see you next time on Mom's Making Dough.